Stop scrolling. Welcome to Conversations with CJ. Today is a great day, and I have a very special guest. He is one of the most respected individuals in sports and broadcast. He played in Super Bowl 23 with the Cincinnati Bengals. So yes, he is part of the SWAT team. A former NFL player and network sports broadcaster for CBS, ESPN, and Sky TV. He is also the host of the opening drive on Sirius XM NFL Radio Channel 88. Additionally, he leads the sports health division for Russo Partners, a New York-based PR firm. Today, I am super delighted to welcome the Emmy Award-winning Solomon Wilcots to Conversations with CJ. How are you, Solomon?
Hey, after that introduction, CJ, I'm doing great, man. I greatly appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. There's so much to talk about and to dig into. So I really want to just jump in. You know, for those who don't, know you, I don't know how they cannot know you because you've been everywhere. Your voice, your face. Tell us about your background. Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, I grew up in Compton, California. I'm the son of a Baptist minister, Mr. Pastor Joe Wilcots and Gracie Wilcots. My mom, she was worked in manufacturing at Mattel's Toy Company. You remember if you grew up in Southern California, there were a lot of manufacturing jobs. And like most people who ended up in California, my parents, when they were children, my grandparents moved from the great state of Texas. My father, his family came out of Texas. My mother, they came out of Shreveport, Louisiana, into California during the 1940s and made California home. They met while they were in high school in Compton, California, when Compton at that time was predominantly white. And somehow my parents found a way to begin the immigration or the migration process into those communities. So that's where I was born and raised. Left California to go to the University of Colorado when I went to high school. And after college in Boulder, Colorado, I was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1987. During that year, there was a player strike. Now, if you're an 8th round pick and you're a rookie on the team, you don't choose to go on strike, but you recognize, the need for solidarity. As for instance, the minimum salary for rookies and really for any player in the NFL at that time in 1987 was $65,000. I had guys that graduated college with me that were working in sales jobs that were making more money than I was, and I was a, quote, pro football player. It was at that point in time that I realized, I need to do something else. I need to go find long-term employment. And I remember I started that year interviewing for a job that I didn't think football would last that long. In fact, we say that the NFL is an acronym, which means not for long. So I went and got a job. I was in a management training program with an insurance company, started working for that business, worked there for about 6, maybe 7 years. Every year during the off season, while I was a player, I had a real job that I went to. And then I transitioned and started working at the local NBC affiliate, came in as an unpaid intern. I worked as a writer and as an editor. Because I could write, that's kind of how I got in the door. That's why they even let me in the door. And so it was my writing skills that kind of got me in. And then I learned how to edit, became a really good storyteller. I became a reporter, then local sports anchor for the NBC affiliate in Cincinnati. And from there, after about 5 years, went on to work at, as you have mentioned, ESPN, Fox Sports, worked at CBS Sports, NFL Network, Sky TV over in London. So I've been really blessed to have a long career in broadcasting.
Wow. Talk about a fascinating journey. Where do I start? I think I need to start from the point of college, but it's playing it back. There's so much we're going to get into it, because you talked about unpaid intern. You talked about how you know how you learn how to write, storytelling. I mean, all that plays so well and it connects. And you talked about just the player strike. I mean, coming out as a rookie. But before that, you were at, Colorado, and everybody knows Colorado, Coach Prime, right?
Yeah.
But you were there way before Coach Prime was a thought. You saw something special in Colorado for you to go from Compton, to Colorado. What was your experience like at Colorado, and what made you select Colorado as a place to take the next step in your career, as you were pursuing football?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Every time I talk with my mom, we kind of have fun with the alliteration that I went from Compton to Colorado to Cincinnati. It's like, we just there's something about cities or states that start with a C in terms of what my path has been like. But growing up in Compton, I saw a lot. I saw a lot of things happen. I saw gang violence. I saw the way our communities were targeted, and the way that drugs flooded our community. And I remember saying, okay, it's time for me to get out of here. What does that look like? How is that going to happen? I knew that as an athlete, I had an opportunity to go to college. And so I knew that I would want to really have a change of scenery. And I always wanted a place that was going to be totally enthusiastic about providing opportunities to young men like myself who looked like me, and in terms of providing opportunities, but would not serve as an impediment to my growth and my development. And as far as choosing a place that no matter whatever I wanted to be in life, wherever I wanted to go in life, I could get there as a result of attending that university and living in that community, wherever that university was. And for me, that was Boulder, Colorado. You're talking about a kid that grew up in the inner city. It never snowed in Compton, right? It was always really warm and beautiful in the palm trees and everything. And then you go to a place like Boulder, Colorado, which is sunny, but yet still cold. And I even learned how to ski when I got there. So I was totally embracing this new environment that I thought really had all of these open borders and open mindset that would allow me to grow. And that's what I found. I found professors there that were phenomenal in terms of helping us as young student athletes to know who we are, what is our worth, what is our value to the communities that we live in, and to the job market that we were seeking to be a part of at a very corporate level. And so I found coaches, professors, and everyone in terms of faculty, and even in the private sector, I found really good jobs. It was just a beautiful place with beautiful people and a very encouraging environment that told Solomon Wilcots, you could be anything you want to be. And I have an example, for instance. I remember I was in one of my English literature classes, and I wrote a paper, forget what it was, but I remember writing this paper. And I remember my professor, asking me to stay after classes. She wanted to talk to me. And so I literally came up afterwards. Okay, let's talk. She said, let me tell you something. She says, you wrote this? This is beautiful. She says, you need to learn to talk the way that you write. Wow. and for a minute, I didn't know if I was offended or if I kind of was like, is that kind of a backhand compliment? What's going on here? But I knew what she meant. I mean, I really did know what she meant. I had always loved writing, even as a young, very, very young person. Always, but you don't share your writing with your homies. That's not.
That's right. That's right.
Not something you do. Like, hey, yo, bro, take a look at this, man. Look at my use of metaphor and alliteration, right? That's not something that you go sharing with the homies, right? So, but what she was saying really was the way that you express yourself through written word. You need to learn to offer that kind of presentation every day. As you're standing up and you're talking to people, as you're talking to your teammates, as you're talking to your coaching staff, if you're doing a presentation for the student body or a presentation in the classroom, one day you're going to be doing presentations professionally. This is what it ought to sound like. It should sound like that when you're talking, just the way that you wrote it. And then and she said, so you're going to have to tell the guys in the locker room now, guys, we're going to speak differently. Now, clearly at the time, I didn't have the maturity to go in and tell the locker room that we're going to conjugate our verbs more precisely. So, you know, but I did take that to heart, did begin to clean some things up. But later, when I got into broadcasting, as I was starting to embark upon that field, you know, it became very clear to me what she was saying. And I immediately began to make inroads to improving, and to the point that, you know, my friends who I grew up with, family members, they see and watch me on television. They say, hey, wait a minute, that's not your voice. And I said, yes, it is. And they were like, but that's not how you talk when we grew up. I said, that's because I grew up.
I love that, because I grew up.
That's right. That's because I grew up. Of course I don't sound the way that I used to. You show me one person in here that sounds the way that we talked back there when we were kids and teenagers growing up, and now you're a mature adult and you're still talking and speaking the same way. Show me one person that's doing that. We can help them out too. So
let me ask you this.
Those were just some of the things that we went through that maturation period.
That's awesome. And you know, you may not know this, but I hold a degree in English. Yeah. So I have a English concentration or literature degree from
Rice about 10 University. Degrees though, bro. You know, you're weighted, man.
So I have that, and for me, it was more so about, at the time I was considering going to law school, and I knew that I had to learn how to write in a certain way, and be prepared to exercise that muscle. And so what it ultimately, you know, turned out was that I grew a huge love for reading. And so I'm one of the guys that I can read, you know, a book, and I can connect different dots that other folks can't connect. I'm probably the worst person to go to the movie with, because I can see within the first 15 minutes
where it's going.
You know, who's the protagonist, antagonist. I can tell it all, right?
That's right.
And so I'm probably the worst person to go to the movie. I want to ask you this question because it deals with communication. You know, some people, they will go to Toastmasters, or they will go to other type of groups to learn how to communicate, to control their uhs and ahs and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, you, in my book, I see you for the work you do. You have an Emmy. Let's just start there. And everyone talks about how you tell stories and how you're a great storyteller, and the method that you use and how you're able to communicate. You know how to use your voice. You know how to enunciate properly. You know how to control the pace and pitch, you know, that gets people to listen. How did you become a master at communication? What were the steps that you can recall that you took in order to get there?
Look, I think it's always a work in progress. And I think people should understand that the English language has, it's like these different levels of strata, and it has broad, right? It's like, it's really one of the few languages that not only speaks in a literal sense, but in a figurative language as well. In other words, it paints pictures, right? You know, when we say, like, you know, in the neighborhood, yo, man, that is just stone cold. Oh, that outfit you wearing. Now the literal sense is that no, it's not hard as stone, and no, it's not. The temperature isn't cold on that outfit. That it connotates that it's of a high level of style and fashion, right? And you can paint a picture with those words. So words take on so many meanings, and the levels of meanings. It's unlimited in terms of what we can do with language, particularly with the English language. And when I was in school, I remember learning and studying English literature, and anyone who's ever read and had to study Shakespeare, that's called a deep dive, as you well know. You know, so, you know, you're talking a deep dive in the use of language and how powerful it can be, how beautiful it can be. More importantly, how persuasive it can be. And when you learn the use of what we call iambic pentameter, which is like the rhythm and the pace of words, right? You hear rappers use it when they staccato spacing and they're speaking very quickly and they're rapping very quickly and they're rhyming very quickly. That's their iambic pentameter. And some of them are very smooth and maybe even more deliberate, but they're trying to draw you in emotionally with that rhythm or with that tempo. They're trying to get you hyped and energetic or on the dance floor with that, right? But one way or another, they're trying to move you, right? And then if I start to use words to paint pictures, right now, and you see the same color, and people say, "Man, I'm feeling you, bro. I'm feeling you." You know? So you see, that's when you know you're working with something, but it's an art form, and it took it took years for me to learn that. I was a kid that gravitated, to reading. All of the classics, man. I would read Greek mythologies. I'm a son of a pastor, so understanding Elizabethan and Old English language since I was a toddler, and being able to parse through some real tough language. But it came natural to me. It was fun. It was entertaining. And I would always read these Greek mythologies. So any history pieces I loved reading. And then when I was introduced to Shakespeare, in high school, I was just like blown away. And then, of course, when I got to college, it was easy because I had already done a lot of it. It was something that I could do that was fun, that was still, it would count towards what I ultimately want to do over in a journalism school. And so when it came time for storytelling, I knew how to use those analogies and those metaphors and to illustrate certain points. And you can make your point just by painting a picture, right? And look, if you think about what you even read in the Bible as a kid, that was figurative language, right? It was,
right.
You were reading stuff that was painting a picture of how to be whatever the scripture was trying to teach you how to be. They would, even as a kid, you read Aesop fables, right? The tortoise and the hare. It's a simple story, but it really wasn't about a tortoise. It really wasn't about a hare. It was about how slow and steady and persistence wins the race, not necessarily talent and speed. Wow. Right? Great wisdom with a few little words using a few simple characters, right? And so you're always learning this stuff. I remember though, I'm just an intern at our local TV station. I remember the news director, he caught on to my work. He's like, "You're doing all the work for these guys. You're writing a lot of our pieces." And by then I had become a producer. And I remember him telling me, he says, "Look, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to get you a speaking coach." And I looked at it. And now what starts to resonate is what, like my sophomore literature professor told me when I was in Boulder, Colorado. "Yeah, you don't talk the way that you write." And clearly that's what he was picking up on. So he offered to pay for me to have sort of vocal lessons. And I remember when I started, I'm thinking, this is vocal lessons, like same thing like with singers. People don't realize, like if you studied anything about Whitney Houston, who was one of the great vocalists, literally one of the great vocalists, right? But her mom was a great vocalist. And what did she teach her? Elocution. She was teaching her how to enunciate every word, right? It's like, you don't get to take shortcuts on that. Right. You got to pick it and you got to nail it and you got to do it every single time, because that's the difference between being an amateur and being a professional. And so once I started working with this voice coach, she was phenomenal. And she would give me these exercises to do. And it really gets the mouth moving, the muscles within your jaw and your diaphragm. People don't realize talking is like singing. Your diaphragm, you're creating a wind tunnel. And that creates vocal qualities when you're talking, like a James Earl Jones, right? The voice of Mufasa, right? The voice of Darth Vader. Think about some of the great characters, right? And all of those characters are Shakespearean, by the way, right? Whether it's Hamlet or whether it's, Simba and the Lion King. It's the same story. The father who dies, someone usurped the father's authority and position as leader, and now you have to avenge the father. People don't realize Lion King, every great story ever told, It's all the same patterns. You know that. It's all they repeat, but you change the names, right? And Shakespeare did all of them. And they're still being done today and turned into great movies. They tend to be the best movies that do the best at the box office, as you well know. But getting back to, in terms of speaking and vocal qualities, and I learned that, Morgan Freeman's the same way, came out of the South, worked with a vocal coach, learned how to speak and enunciate, and to the point where now people are paying him to read script.
That's right.
You're getting paid to read script. That's right. Because his voice is that good. It's that strong. It's that powerful. We all know James Earl Jones, man. He brings words to life. When we talk about vocal talent, he's the burning bush. Okay. He's bad, dude.
Let me tell you, I'm sitting here, I'm about to do this when they do this at church, when the pastor's on fire. Woo!
I appreciate that.
Hey, I want people to understand the masterclass that just happened literally within 5 minutes, from iambic, iambic, pentameter to, a vocal coach, to the muscles in your mouth. And I know this because from my previous career, I was a sales professional. I was inside sales.
Yeah.
And when I got into leadership, I would tell, and speak to my reps and say, hey, you need to watch what you drink, when you're on the phones. I don't want you drinking cold water. I want you drinking warm water, because why? Because your voice. We didn't have the technology that we have right now. We had our voice in a phone. So I need your voice to be the best it can be. And if that means you stand up when you talk, you stand up when you talk.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Also, if your script is handwritten and you got to squint, that impacts how you enunciate words. So maybe you should type it in a bigger font so you don't have to strain your eyes, straining your face to enunciate. I mean, you just gave us a master class on so much. I mean, the English concentration nerd in me can go off on this one for days and days and days. I want to go back and ask you this question because I see it. You're like a triple threat. I mean, this is what an Emmy Award winning, recipient does, right? So when I think about, the lessons that you learn from, your parents, the lessons you learn from your teachers in Colorado, I know you have some lessons that you learned on the field, and I'm just interested in knowing when you think about, all those lessons, how did you, bundle all that up, when you made the step from professional football to broadcasting and also to what you're doing right now? What stands out most as like, these are maybe, one or two lessons that I carry with me every single day of my life?
Well, I appreciate you asking that because they are very important. I think everyone who has set goals for themselves, right? You have goals, dreams, aspirations. You have to have sort of lay out this course. Okay, how am I going to get there? How am I going to accomplish this task? How am I going to get from where I'm at to where I want to be? And then you start to develop some of these key things. And then when you look back after you've able to accomplish a lot of those things, many of them, you say, wow, these are the things that are really important. You start really applying more of those things into what it is you're currently doing in terms of what the next plateau is, what the next mountain that you're going to climb. You apply those and found that success can become duplicated, that you can do it over and over again, even if you're moving within different industries or on from one project to another, because these things hold true, right? And one of those things for me that's always held true is, to be curiously energetic is how I would describe it. And I've always had this curiosity to learn or to know. That's just organically who I am. And that served me well because that curiosity all by itself wouldn't be enough unless you're willing to do something about it, right? So for me, it was always about reading. Even before there were computers, right? There were always these things called books, right? And we always joke among our friends and my fraternity brothers, knowledge is this thing they hide in these items they call books. That's where they hide the knowledge, right? It still can be found there. Now we have a lot of other resources, but it was always in reading. It was always very important to read. It was always, I even till to this day, I always look at our knowledge base as sort of a bank vault. And the way that you get the knowledge in there is by making deposits. The only way that you can make deposits is you've got to be a reader. You got to be curiously energetic about what you do. You got to chase information. You got to seek it out. You got to go find it. And you have to know how to source information. Because there's a lot of information out there now, man, that's bad information. But this like I do, as when we were studying in English literature and understand, you had to know how to source information. Where did that information come from? How did that information come to be largely recognized as good information or truth or usable information? And so learning those things have helped me tremendously in my life. And I found that it's become very valuable. And then that energy component is really just something that allows you to get up every single day to go chase your dreams, your goals, your aspirations. Whether it was a kid who wanted to get a football scholarship so he could make it out of the hood, get off to college, and then go on to do bigger and better things, right? I didn't get to accomplish that sitting on the couch, right? I didn't get to accomplish that, man. There was a lot of work that goes into that. There's academic work that goes into that. There's work in the weight room that went into that. Because I was a little puny dude, man. There's work on the field with technique and drills in doing that. And look, growing pains, people don't realize growing pains hurt. Whether mental growing pains, psychological, emotional, growth means that it's going to hurt. You don't get to evolve and go next level without experiencing some kind of discomfort, right? And so you've got to learn how to push through those moments. Also, I would say that, you're going to have to be, and I found this to be true for me. Now, you got to understand, I came from parents who were, my whole family was in church. My aunts, my uncles, my mom and dad, obviously, but all my cousins, when we go to church on Sunday, the whole church was cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole family. And so I was fortunate in that I was able to at least understand, I think with good parents, that how to establish some kind of moral compass. But I do think you have to be, morally intentional. Morally intentional. And what that really means is, and look, I have homies. I got boys who have done some things. I've got friends who done things like, yo, man, let's go no, you go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go do this. And you got to be really intentional. And now think about this as we're going into the workplace, as we're building careers. You and I both know there are a lot of people who have built career the right way, morally. There are people who build careers by taking shortcuts. There are people who build careers and been successful by taking shortcuts. But as my dad has said, I've read that the truth will track down a lie every single time. Like, I don't have to worry about someone knocking at my door. I don't have to worry about stuff coming back on me, right? I don't have to worry about that. Now, look, I've studied Niccolo Machiavelli. I know about Machiavellian principles. I know all about those things by any means necessary, so to speak. But I've decided that I'm not going that route. And I do believe it's important because at somewhere along the line, all of us, if you're going to be successful, somewhere along the line, you're going to be asked to do something that goes against your principles. You're going to be asked to do something unsavory. You're going to be asked, hey, man, it's okay. Nobody knows. Come on, man. You can do just this one time. It's okay. It's not. I'm just here to tell you, not okay. Now, that's just how I'm wired, because that's what I've chosen, because I've made it my intent to be that way. And it didn't, I don't feel like it's cost me anything. I don't think it, it hindered my opportunities. In fact, if there was an opportunity that I had by doing the wrong thing, I don't want it. I don't want it. You keep it. You see what I'm saying? Because I believe that that you can build a career. If you think about this, if you are morally intentional, and if your intent is all that I get, I'm sharing. All that I have, I'm sharing, because I know that leads to getting even more. And there's never a dry spell. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
There ain't never a dry spell. So now I dare you to try it. I dare you to try to be that kind of intentional moral builder, particularly as you're trying to build a career. So that's really important. And lastly, I'll just say, look, always play the long game. Always play the long game. Look, man, I've had jobs offered to me. I remember working, and like, I'm coming now. I'm coming. I'm working, and I'm getting job offers from Fox Sports. I'm telling you, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, nah, this isn't the right gig. This isn't the right one. And then at that time, you remember TNT, they were based out of Atlanta. And I was really wanted it. I really wanted it. And I'm like, had an offer, and I'm telling you, man, didn't feel right. Just wasn't right. And this is what I wanted. And I was just like, I remember having to tell a guy, no, now it's not the right time. A year later, my phone rang, and it was ESPN. That felt right. When I flew to Bristol and I went on the set to audition for that job with late, great Stuart Scott, that felt right. That's where I went on to win an Emmy. That's where all these great things went on to happen. I knew it was for me. I knew it was right. And it's not easy saying no to some things that you want, but in here, it don't feel right. I mean, don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy. But I can look back on it today and say, hey, I played the long game. I never doubted myself. I never doubted my talent and my abilities. I always was going to be a hard worker. So if it was going to be offered to me at that moment, I knew it'd be offered to me again, and then again, and then again. So that was the confidence that allowed me to say no to some things that I felt like I had worked for, maybe even deserved, but it just didn't feel right.
Wow. So, when I hear everything, I think it aligns so clearly now to what you said recently. It was like earlier this month on the Believe in Bingo show. And you were talking about Coach Dick LeBeau, and he's talking about tackling. So I'm going to explain. I'm going to connect these dots with what I just said. You said that Dick LeBeau said tackling is a want. You have to want it versus a how to it. He's like, if a man wants to put another man on the ground, he will figure it out. And when I think about what you just said about curiously energetic, you use chasing it, right?
Yeah.
That's wanting it. That's wanting that knowledge. You got to chase it, right? And then you said, you talked about how, your father gave you that wonderful line. The truth will always track down a lie. Going back to, the chase and going back to the want, right? Then you talked about, being morally intentional in choosing the right scenario for you, the best scenario for you based on your morals and your principles and what your heart is telling you. To me, that's magic. I want to ask you this question because you brought it up. You talked about, the late great Stuart Scott, but more in those lanes. We know that you were coached by Dick LeBeau. We know that, I would say when you sent me the picture. So guys, he sent me a picture and I'll show it of him tackling, Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, right? So he put hands on Jerry Rice, shoulders, cleats, and brought him to the ground because tackling is a wanted.
Yeah, it's about want to, not how to.
That's right. So he put, and this is not the only Hall of Famer or other person of greatness that Solomon knows and has spoken to. How did you deal with, or how do you deal with, what would you say for people that are dealing with imposter syndrome? What would be some tips that you would say, because here you are. I mean, you're like, hey, I came from Compton. I went to Colorado. I learned how to speak. I played football on a high level. I've been on the biggest stage. And then you go to broadcasting. You're with some of the giants, right? Yeah. Of broadcasting. You win an Emmy. And I know you have confidence. I already know that. I know you're courageous, right? I know that, and I know you're curiously energetic. Mm-hmm. But for folks that may suffer through imposter syndrome, what would you say to them?
Really about how to generate the self-confidence that's needed to conquer the world, right? To be undeniable and unapologetic in what you do. Because I do think being that way is phenomenally empowering. And it's the way that we were designed to be. It's a blessing, right? It's a blessing to be empowered with that kind of self-confidence, but still enough humility to say that, look, I'm here to help people. I'm here to do for others. I was able to get mine. I was able, all the things on that whiteboard that I put on that board, I've been able to check off. And I love to believe that I was been able to check those things off, because at the end of the day, it's the why.
Yes.
Why do we do what we do? Now think about this. Now, this is a critically important question. There are people who work hard every single day. There are people who are very successful, right? Because they get up and they get to work every single day. Begin to dive deep into why. Now, every person is motivated differently. Everybody has their own independent motivations. I think I've tried to share with you some of mine about being morally intentional, and that is a driving force, because you will never have to worry about having what you need if you're helping other people get what they need. If you're helping others, if you are a conduit for that kind of assistance in the universe, think about how that empowers you in a great way, because it shows you can be trusted with those gifts. It shows you can be trusted with that kind of blessing. I have friends who have been great athletes, and when their careers are over, they're trying to transition to find who they are without the game of football or the game of basketball, or they're no longer a Major League Baseball player. Now, who am I without the game? Jackie Robinson said, the athlete dies twice.
Wow.
Because you can no longer do that thing that you were doing since you were a little boy. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You start your day, start your effort, your energy, your focus to say, what can I do to help other people? See, too many people are trying to be successful because they're trying to get. Take, right? Right? Climb. Right? Why are you trying to do it? For self, for me, for pride. So other people can look at me and say, man, you're doing great. Look what you got. Look at that car. Look at that house. Look at the things you have. Look what you've accumulated. What if you're doing it so you can help other people? What if every night when you got on your knees before you went to bed, you pray, say, Lord, bless me so that I can be a blessing to somebody else? Woo! Okay. Okay. I think everybody can be part of that story. You'll find that you'll have people lining up to help you, as long as you hold true to the mission statement, right? It's like,
right.
Hold true to that. So what I say is confidence is born. Anyone who's struggling with crises of confidence, crises of decision-making, failure to launch, so to speak, we've heard those terms. Look to help somebody else, man. Stop trying to just help yourself. Stop trying to feel sorry for yourself because you are not getting what you want. Help others get what they want. I dare you. I dare you to approach life that way. I have a friend, very good friend in Atlanta. His wife ran in the Olympics. She's a great athlete. And he was talking about, okay, now she's home. I mean, phenomenal athlete. Phenomenal talent and can do great things. And he was like, man, we're struggling. And he's very successful. This is not about monetary gain. This is about just finding a sense of self. It is being decreed that man should work, right? Man and woman should work. It wasn't necessarily just to go out and get resources. This is for your own happiness. So this is so you don't self-destruct.
That's right. That's right.
Because without it, you will self-destruct. If you don't know your purpose, you don't have a drive and energy of what you're going to do with your day, trust me, you're going to self-destruct. I told him, I said, tell her to go up to any park and find 2 girls over there running and say, hey, you guys know I used to run track. Do you want to learn how to run? You want to be a good runner? I can help you with that. Next thing you know, she's going to have a flock of kids running to her. Next thing you know, she's going to be putting together her own program. She got her own training team. She got her own track club. Now she's traveling with kids all over the country, helping them to achieve their dreams, helping them to get into some of the best high schools, right? They're getting scholarships to high schools and to colleges. And now they're going on to do great life's work. Whoa, here it is. You know what you were going to do with your future, and the future found you. If you just look to help somebody, look out now. It's going to start a tidal wave. Because that kind of energy, CJ, is a force multiplier. It really is. It's a force multiplier. And now, man, you're not having any kind of syndromes of doubt and confidence and regret. You're going to live a life that's full of promise and wonderful moments and wonderful events. All you started was just by helping somebody.
You know, I'm part of this team of people led by a guy named Rob Wobbly Youngblood, who is he created a movement called Collaboration Creates Currency, and Rob is on a mission to impact 100,000 lives, and it starts with, like you said, helping other people. And I think about a lesson that I learned in life. It was a tough lesson at the time. And it was this my coach, my basketball coach, wanted to teach me a hard lesson but he wanted to get across to me how to understand how to be a better teammate.
Yeah.
So pulled me to the side, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to bet you that you will not score." We were in a tournament game, a summer league tournament game. He said, "You will not score more than 10 points this game against this team. And I'm betting you $20, right?" It was the hardest 10 points I've ever scored in my life. We lost the game, because guess what? I was point guard. I wasn't passing the ball.
Yeah,
I wasn't looking for opportunities to get my team involved.
Right.
And when we got done with the game, he sat me down. He said, it's a tough lesson that I'm teaching you, but it's a valuable lesson that you're going to learn, is that you have to look for opportunities to bring people on board and to help be a good teammate, right? You can't be selfish in what you're doing. And it stuck with me because it was like, it was summer league, so he didn't care about losing that game per se, right? It was a lesson, and I struggled with that for a while, just going back and forth, like, why would he do it that way? Why would he, use, money or something like that? I was a poor little kid. Right?
Yeah,
$20 was a lot for me, right?
Yeah.
And so,
he taught you the simple lesson, how you get more by giving than just by going out and looking to get for self.
That's right. That's right.
That you're going to get more.
That's right.
By distributing, by looking to assist and to help others. And then it feeds on itself. And now you're existing in an environment and cultivating an environment where the giving and the gifts are just flowing.
So then I take that. Thing. That's right. I take that, and when I get into corporate America, the lesson still sticks with me, right? So then I, get promoted to management. One of the youngest promotions that they had at the data and analytics company I was at. I'm leading teams in my early 20s. And I'll never forget that lesson, because I gave away everything I knew to empower that team to be successful. That team was like the lowest ranking team for like the last 10 years prior to when I was given the opportunity to take on that role. And within 18 months, they became the number 1 performing team. And it wasn't that we changed over personnel.
Yeah.
No, I saw gifts in people that they didn't see in themselves. And I would say, hey, I believe in you. I see you operating at this level in my mind, but you're right here, right now. I need you to believe too. And here's some things that I see that can help you. And I'm going to work with you. So I didn't just manage them. I became a partner with them in their success because I knew that, and Keith Hawk says this, is that, my job is to help you succeed, because when you succeed, guess what? We all succeed. And so that was a big piece for me in that. I know time is of the essence. I want to ask you just two more questions really quick. And, I got this question really based on hearing about, AI in sports. And I just want to know, just based on where you sit at, how are you here, or what are you hearing how AI is being used in professional sports or even in the NFL?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning is being used at a phenomenal rate at the collegiate level, particularly at the professional level in the NFL. And it's being used in a number of different ways, whether it's team building, player evaluation, player development, game planning and strategy, right? Injury prevention and rehabilitation. Players are wearing chips in their helmets. They wear chips in their shoulder pads, even in like the undergarments. Like if you have a t-shirt, they have a chip right here. And that's how you get the data collection, right? So they're pulling in data in every way, shape, or form. And as you well know, man, the data that you could track is enormous. It's almost infinite, right? You can pull in data points for, say, an oxygen level intake of a player during the second hour of practice compared to, say, the first hour of practice. You could get, you can learn what is their peak performance or explosion rate and movements and fast twitch, everything. And then obviously you're going to collect that data after you have finished the data collection process. You use the machine learning and you put all that into the computer, and what computers, as you well know, what it does now and AI technology, it literally takes all of that information and it normalizes it, right? In other words, you have some of the stuff that's an outlier, some of the stuff is more centered and more consistent, and now you're packing that in, and that's how you're creating these levels of probabilities. And so now when, say, for instance, I'm drafting this player over that player, if I just watch the play, this player looks like the better player. This player looks, like maybe he's not as good, but the data is going to tell us in other ways, how are they performing the biomechanics, right, of the data that we talked about, that you're taking from the helmet, that you're taking from the chips and the shoulder pads. It can measure impact, when a guy makes a tackle, right? I mean, and now you get to use these metrics that have they're very objective, right? They're not subjective. They don't suffer to the whims of emotion, of how you feel about a player or what you see aesthetically. All that's stripped out of there. As you well know, the data is totally objective, right? It doesn't it doesn't see this guy from that guy, or big, tall, short, skinny. It doesn't see any of that, right? And so it's become very, very useful, even in free agency, when you go to sign a player like a quarterback, for instance. How do you determine which quarterback is better and which quarterback is better for you? You can use all of the data points that you're going to get through AI, but you're going to get maybe some other things that typically that people aren't tracking. And it is, okay, the production. Who do we attribute this production to? Is it all attributed to the quarterback? Or is it universally distributed to, say, the running back who scored the touchdown, or the receiver who made a great catch when the quarterback threw it high and outside? The receiver went outside of his space in what we call a contested catch. It was contested, guy hanging all over, and he went up and caught it anyway and scored a touchdown. Are you going to give the quarterback credit for that Well, the real nuanced version of what data does, it says that no, that play should be credited more so to the wide receiver who lended the production. So that it helps you to make better choices, more what we call more informed choices when it comes to drafting players, signing players, building out your roster. When it comes to injury prevention, rehabilitation from injury is being used in medicine in phenomenal ways that we never thought possible. So I hope I didn't take up too much time.
No, you didn't. You did. You know what? When it comes to, I'll tell you this. I go with. I love the way that it was described. You said when you pick a quarterback. I love the way that your previous guest on Believe in Bingos, Joe Theismann, how he said it. He said playoff wins. He said when it comes to the quarterback, playoff wins.
Playoff wins. That's right.
He said because that's what matters as you're moving up, basically, to get to what? Super Bowl victories, right? And so he said playoff wins. Hey, let me ask you this. Where can people find you to hear more Solomon Wilcots? Regardless whether they, I think, in my personal opinion, the work that you do, it supersedes just the conversation of football. Because when I hear you on Sirius and when I hear you on Believe in Bingos, there are nuggets of wisdom that are placed in there that is not just for football. It's football, but it's also life. So where can they go to hear more Solomon Wilcots?
Well, first of all, CJ, I appreciate you and thank you. And I know, that's high praise coming from you because you understand the multi-levels of the way that I'm intending to communicate, right?
That's right. That's right.
So that's intentional as well, because I do think you have to offer people more than just football. You have to offer them some wisdom. And we always say that athletics is a metaphor for life. It puts you in some of the most stressful, strenuous situations. And we find out who you really are when you're put under stress. I can tell you that right now. Every single person, you get put under stress, things start to come out. So that's why you got to be careful what's in there. As soon as you're under stress, man, it comes leaping out. But no, people can find me on Sirius XM NFL Radio Channel 88. Our show is called The Opening Drive. We air from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. You can find me on X or on Twitter at Solomon's Wisdom. And you can also find us at the Believe in Bingo podcast. Go to believe.com, BLEAV.com, or on YouTube to find our episodes. We talk bingos mainly, but we also talk league-wide around the league issues to help you learn more about the game. I love the game of football, and it's taught me a lot. It's given me a lot. The NFL is a phenomenal organization. I like to think of it like working for IBM. I've lived and worked over in London. I've worked over in Ireland. I've been abroad. And as soon as people ask, what do you do? Who do you work for? I tell them I cover the NFL. And bam, they already know. Like they don't say who, what. Can you explain a little bit more of that? Nope. And that's how it is. If anybody who's ever worked at IBM or gone through IBM, right? As soon as it's one of those companies that when you name it, you don't need any more messaging after that. So that's how big it is. And I've been very fortunate to be this kid growing up in Compton, California, to become part of this huge apparatus that offers a lot of opportunities to a lot of people, not just as players and coaches and broadcasters, but in a number of different ways. You mentioned data analytics. There are a lot of people who are employed through that platform as well. And so it's a never-ending deal. We always say the NFL is like this octopus with all of these tentacles touching every facet of society, right? And out of it spawn so many other industries, right, that thrive off of this hub that we know as the NFL.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And hey, man, I'm going to say it. We're going to have to bring you back because there's so much more for us to talk about. And thank you very much.
CJ, you're the best, my man. So you keep up the good work and, I'll come join you anytime you ask.
Stop scrolling.